Okay.
You know, despite this heat wave that we're currently going through, a brutally long dynamic warm-up on these mics. Even though that summer heat's got them loose already, you got to dust those joints off after quite some time. That's a nice hat, sir.
The champ is here. The champ is here. 18-time champ, standing alone the throne of NBA championships. 18 of them damn things. What a week it's been. It's kind of been like an extended weekend. It's kind of kept me in that mode of just wanting to chase my own wins and victories in my own life, because the jubilation and the celebration that ensued on Monday in the city of Boston following the title was something that you just can't quite. You could think what it might be like, and then you really see it, and it's so much greater than you would have thought. And I'm not even a part of the team, but it's one of those things that still is so special, even just to be a fan and to see it. So that has given me a whole jolt, and I got the hat. Shout out Representative Sean Garbley of our district, Arlington and Medford. They dropped a bunch off to the State House on Tuesday, and he just popped one over yesterday. So shout out to Rep Garbley. I'll be rocking this to the parade tomorrow.
Yeah, you said in that little monologue, a cinematic monologue, you're not part of the team, right?
No.
And yet at the start of that monologue, you said, the champ is here.
You know, listen, I feel a part of the team.
Yeah. The city's unified.
The city's unified, and it is, and we talked about this in episode 3, and it gives you chills to feel it in its full essence, is how much sports bring people together from all walks of life. You know, you hear all kinds of negative things about Boston. It's far from perfect. It's heavily white, it's racist, whatever the speculation is, and much of it being true at times. But to see everyone together celebrating, men, women, all walks of life, all different races, ethnicities, was so cool. And I felt a part of that. You know what I mean?
It is interesting how those moments, far and few between, just always remind you how potent they are when they do show up. Those moments I'm talking about when everything freezes and you kind of drop all of those maybe greater challenges that you go through as a society, you know, between peoples. And, you know, you have those kind of historical moments where things are just lighter or more unified.
Yes.
Just off of even people who don't even like basketball, like the Celtics. It's a city-wide experience.
Yeah, it's cool. I think it's that value of celebrate, you know, and I think that looking for the good in life, and there's so much polarity with so many things and opinions and all that, and it's unfortunate, and I don't know if that will ever subside, but I do know that sports if there wasn't sports, the society would be far worse. I do think it's something that brings people together from so many walks of life. You got sports, music, food. What are the others? Sports, music, food.
Dance.
Right
in line with music.
Yeah. Different
art.
Art. There you go. So it's like, you know, sports are certainly at the top of that list. So to be in the city of champions is a blessing that I've grown up here, and I've seen a whole lot of titles in my day, but I don't vividly remember the 08 one. I was only 6 or 5 going on 6. I think I was out in the driveway getting my own work in.
He is lying.
But 16 years later,
you were not putting.
No. I was probably bedtime. 16 years later, it feels pretty cool to see this and experience it, and excited for that parade tomorrow.
Yeah, and you mentioned something earlier about the importance to celebrate. We'll dip off into that soon enough. But the final thing before we get into the topic I want to ask you is this Celtics team going to be back? Are they going to say done next?
It's a great question. Yes.
Because I feel like it's tougher nowadays to string together championships, right? You saw the Warriors come in late. You saw Denver with a couple quick. You wonder if they're going to be back. But, I feel like the league's real volatile now.
It is.
But do you think they have that gene, that motor, that ability to say, give me another one in 25?
Absolutely. And I'll tell you why. I think, look, there's a lot of things have to go right. Now, we would have dog-walked whomever we played. But nonetheless, a lot of the teams we played, their good players kept going down, which sucks. Best ability is availability. So I'm going to say that.
Okay,
one.
Sure.
And there's a bit of luck involved in that.
Yeah.
I still think, again, whoever we would have played, it would have been just same thing. We would have smoked them. But, if the Heat had Jimmy Butler, that series is like it would have been different. Things would have been different. If Joel Embiid was healthy, they're not a 7 seed. You know what I mean? So it's everything is dependent. And the Bucks, Giannis was hurt. So I don't want to go on a long tangent down the basketball hole, but I'll say this: I do think the psychological piece has now just been unlocked for the Celtics because there's been this big burden. Like, let's get 18. Yeah. We're right there. We keep getting close. Tatum and Brown, are they meant to be together? They've won so much, yet they've been scrutinized for winning so much because they haven't won that big one. Yeah. Now you get rid of that, and now you did it. Now I think their confidence, that step, that pep is just going to be so much more potent and dangerous. And these other teams, catching them, they're just entering their prime. They got the whole team back. And by the way, we didn't have our 7-2 Latvian guy for majority of the playoffs, who was an all-star. So, we also had some unlucky things happen, but we dealt with them. So, yes, I think it's the start of a three-peat. So 2 years from now, we're going to have the receipts. Boston Celtics will be three-peat champions maybe on this day in 2 years. So I'm excited. It's a good time to be a Boston sports fan.
It's very possible. It's a bold prediction.
Oh, yeah, very bold.
Taken after Stephen A. Trying to draw some eyes. It's fine. That is a good point, though, because one of my biggest critiques, and it's Jordan Kobe for me. Very similar for you, your appreciation, but one of my biggest critiques is Tatum's ferocity as a competitor, his ability to put his head down, to block out noise instead of feeding into it, even creating it himself. So I wonder if that'll switch a gear in him so that he can just kind of relax, let his mind go.
Yeah.
I feel like, he's still young as a player and a competitor, but and it shows, and I think he's growing in his ability to play that mental side, and he still has distance to go. I think Missoula is going to be big in setting him back on the ground, bringing him back down. Agreed. Hey, this is another season. We got to do it all again because he does no BS.
No,
he's going to tell it as it is.
Yes.
And he's going to get their head back after they enjoy some sunshine and beaches.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah, they're going to celebrate. But, yeah, I think it starts
he'll be big.
It starts at the top. You're right. And that's a great call because Missoula is so locked in.
Yeah.
And he's going to – I could see him once he gets on. I imagine on this media tour he's going to go on, which always happens after you win the title. You go on every podcast. You're going to start hearing him talking about – I'm already thinking about next year.
Yeah.
And that just fires you up. So, yeah, they got a leader up top who will keep the main thing, which is running the damn thing back. Because once you set the standard, which they now have, anything below it is a failure. But they've, again, gotten that burden off their back, proved they can do it.
Yeah.
You liberate yourself from a lot of criticism once you win that first one. I mean, Giannis, they haven't won since, and he's been hurt. He's had all, but you don't hear many critiques because they won that one title. So I think it's going to unlock Tatum and Brown in a way that was needed and is only going to take them to another level.
Yeah. Sir, let's transition to celebrate.
Yeah.
We're kind of winging this. We had a little dialogue before. We don't know exactly where this is going to go, but one theme that has been present in my life recently, I've been texting a few people about, is this idea of, that voice in your head telling you a story, right? How you fit into the world, how you stand socially, I guess loosely, if you're a winner or loser, like how successful you are, where you stand ability-wise, intelligence-wise. We'll talk about celebrate in a bit, but what's the first thing you think of when I say that a lot of people have that voice working against them? Probably provokes a lot of anxiety, insecurity, unsureness, and that therefore extends into a lack of action. Can I do this? Can I succeed? Am I good enough to take this next step? Whatever it is, you've gone through the process of harnessing that, bringing that to be a strong suit and something that allows you to really just block out unnecessary things, focus on what's important, and give you momentum, propel you. What do you have to say about that process and just the importance of, I guess being frank and honest with yourself about where you stand, but also not letting that be a detractor and a friction causer?
Yeah, that's a great question. For me, what I came to realize, and I still am working on it, but there's moments throughout your day or life and challenges you're facing where you know that if you could hear something from someone, that you'd feel so much better.
Yeah.
In those moments of anxiety, anxiety is fear of uncertainty. You're uncertain about how's this game going to go? How's this podcast can be received? Whatever the case may be. There's something you wish you could hear. If you, as a player, and we wrote a blog on this called The Voices in Your Head. It's on morethandifferent.com. You'll find it. But it's exactly where my mind went to. As a player, you get I still do. You get the performance anxiety before the game. You're like, shit. And I had a teammate who my freshman year, before my first ever college game, was the most nervous I'd ever been, no doubt. And he came up to me before the game and he said, hey, have some fun. Play free. Let go. You're ready for this. And I was like, wow, that's what I needed to hear.
Yeah.
And it was awesome. He did it for the rest of the year. And I told him how much it meant to me. But what it made me realize is that's all I needed to hear.
Yeah.
I got to be able to tell myself that, and I got to be able to listen to myself. So in moments where you need to be honest with yourself, sometimes that might be blunt criticism and assessing that things need to change. But other times it's like you got to be able to build yourself up. And that voice in your head has to you have to be able to listen to it, because there's times where you just need to hear from someone else. You got to be able to hear it from yourself, because sometimes there aren't people there to tell you what you need to hear or want to hear. Sometimes you got to do it.
Yeah, and I feel like there's so many different lanes which I see I could take here. This one might be a quick aside, but that journal is really a potent and poignant place where you can rein that voice back in, whether it's a type of mantra writing, where you kind of repeat the same thing over and over to instill that in your mind, or a few things just to kind of recenter your view on what is actually happening around you. And so like that can help you weed through a lot of emotional stress and just that mind worrying. It's like, no, let me just write it out calmly. Writing's a calm process.
It is.
Maybe put on, a relaxing beat or whatever, and you kind of just get it out and you recenter that voice.
Well, isn't it crazy how the more you think about your problems or ruminate with them, the more they fester?
Yeah, but I think also that's a very, very true point from the perspective of procrastination.
That
But
too, yeah.
if you tell yourself the story of I'm an attacker, right? I want to dominate whatever situation it is. All of these problems, I can solve them. Let me do them. And then you just go and take actions, like we talked about in the past, to complete those. Your story is going to be, hey, I'm a problem solver.
Yeah.
I can achieve these things. Like, I'm confident enough to face novel challenges and complete them, or at least get better after I've failed. Work on the weaknesses that those failures exposed, etc. And I think, I'm sensing a transition into Celebrate where that story becomes, like I just mentioned, I'm a problem solver. I'm an achiever. I'm a done nexter to extend Grover a bit.
You're a momentum generator.
Okay. We could keep hitting these two-worders. We won't.
Yeah, we love a good two-worder.
But I think, an important piece with this voice, with this story, in these times where, whether it's just a couple words, play free, or if it's, kind of a more lengthy type of contemplative reflection, where you go, hey, this is what I've done freshman year. Maybe I'll just go from a basketball perspective. Hey, this was freshman year, first third of the season. I was anxious. Then it kind of subsided in the middle part. I began to play more free, found my shot, whatever it was. And by the end of the season, I was way, way better than I was freshman year. Then you reflect on your sophomore season or whatever it is, right? And you see that growth. The point I'm making is that you reflect on that growth. You see the progress that you made, those big successes that you've had in the past. Maybe it was that first game of the season for you when you absolutely spazzed. Okay? When you spazzed for a 40 ball. Like if you, are nervous because, like you said, that still comes. This first game of junior year, reflect back on the first game of sophomore. You said, hold up, played free, and I spazzed.
Yeah.
And I went for a 40 ball. And then that mind starts to change its story. It's not, oh, no, I'm going to get eaten up. Yes. Oh, no, I'm not ready. Oh, what if I turn the ball over 7 times if I only have 9 points on inefficient shooting? Whatever it is, you're like, hold on. I run this shit. I spaz out. It's junior year 3. I'm back better than ever. Like, give me this money. Yeah. Let's start the season off with a dub. And you can see how quickly that momentum shifts in your mind if you begin to reflect on those past victories.
Yeah, and that's rooted in seeing yourself face adversity and deal with it.
Yeah,
and that
actually doing it.
And that and that creates confidence. And that's the work. I mean, all the work you do in life, like emotional growth, which I feel like I've made a lot of progress with, in terms of like trusting your ability to handle what emotions are going to come. Yeah. Because that whole like, oh my God, what if I feel this? It's almost never as bad as you think it's going to be.
Yeah, no.
And so trusting that you've dealt with it in the past and whatever will arise, you will handle, is built in dealing with adversity and dealing with challenges that make you uncomfortable, because that's how you build confidence. I remember, this is funny. I don't know if you remember this, but I was thinking about this the other day because I was wearing the same shirt and I filled that baby out now. But during those mornings when we started working out together, I remember being like, I want to feel so uncomfortable. I want to do the thing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I remember I used to wear I'd wear sweatpants and then I'd wear a baggy ass tee.
Yeah.
And
this is COVID you're talking about?
COVID.
Yeah. Back when we were getting shots up in the morning. B was on a mentality trip, but we both were, and he was just like, let me get as uncomfortable as possible. I hate shooting in big shirts. couple hundred slings a morning in a big shirt, and he just loosened it up, and he just got used to it.
Yeah, and it also made me be like, this is so uncomfortable. I need to get stronger.
Yeah.
And
Right.
The work's gotten done, and all eyes on filling out an Excel next. But yeah, I think that being willing to be uncomfortable and in moments of discomfort, being able to lean on your voice in your head.
Yeah, right.
And it not be an enemy. It can't be you versus yourself. There are in your life, you want to be the best version of you, but you can't be in moments where you're fighting your own head, where it's like I'm playing against myself. No. You need to harness that superpower and that voice. And if you do, it can unleash a side of you and really bring out the full potential in all walks of life, in all forms, emotional, mental, physical. So, yeah, the voice in your head should be someone who celebrates yourself. But also can be honest.
Yeah.
Because there's times where we need to go in elevate mode and address some weaknesses.
Yeah. That journal is always a great place to be honest. I'll just say that quick. I think one of the most important elements of this process is the individuality, is finding those unique strategies that work for you in those moments, that comfort you. For example, is it a pregame meditation? Is it a mantra? Is it writing to yourself? Is it a certain song that orients that voice and that energy that you're in before a performance, or whatever it is, right? There's a really, really critical element of exploration, of discovery, of starting to learn yourself and how this process within you works. And I feel like this is a super, super potent process of building a relationship with yourself, because it's really interesting how if the story that you tell about you to you and where you sit in the world is negative, like it's you telling you how bad you are.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
Then if you start to wield that and you become more appreciative of yourself, you can celebrate yourself, and you're also there with yourself through the tribulations as you elevate, and you're honest with yourself, and you see yourself victorious, and you support yourself after failures, and you get back up. Like that's just a complete 180, and the self-love just abounds from that process. But you need to put in the work to learn who you are first and really garner strategies like it was a Swiss Army knife that you can deploy whenever, so that you can stay with you in the right type of energy, if you will.
Well said, Ron. Yeah, self-love is the best love. There's no doubt about that. And thinking about the journal, I remember when I had you on you had me on that interview for your class. I remember telling you about how when I initially started, it was almost a space to write about my problems. Yeah. Which is okay. Journaling can be that. But then, years of it, I'm like, God, everything I'm writing is negative. I'm going to this place to just write all the negative things going on, because it is freeing to let it out and to be honest. Certainly. But then I'm also like, holy shit, I was rereading one of them a few weeks ago, and I was like, everything is like a complaint and something like I don't have, versus focusing, what do I have? What was I happy with today? What do I have to look forward to? Yeah. What went well? What direction do I like where I'm going? Like, and there was plenty of things to write about in that facet, but I just wasn't. And I'd say a big transition I made was I feel like my journal now is so much more positive. Yeah, I remember you said that. You emphasized that in our app. Yeah, for class. And that just aligns with much of what we're saying, is how you think about yourself is going to dictate your perception of you, and see your energy too, and like your confidence and how you live, because our voice is powerful, and if it's a negative one, then it's going to create negative thoughts, especially in moments of uncertainty, which are inevitable in our lives. It's like you want to be able to lean on yourself and not have to dread, like, oh, fuck, here he comes. Here comes the monster in my head. It's like, no.
Right. Because it has to be secured internally before you go to external support. Because, a building needs a strong foundation. If floor 2 and up are built strong, doesn't matter if it collapses from the bottom. So you got to be checked off first before, you have that support system. Now, granted, if that relationship with yourself is in a vulnerable place and it's buckling a little bit, people can come and hit some repairs and whatnot. But I would say an overwhelming amount of the time, at least from my experience, if I was with me and that relationship was intact and strong, and like I said, I had those strategies that I learned that I benefit from, I was fine. Now, in that last point, you mentioned confidence. And I think one of my biggest struggles, one of my biggest pitfalls just in this process, which was just simply due to naivety, youthfulness, was the ego getting out of control. And although we don't speak about it a lot with MTD in this pod yet, or early, few eps in, but is humility. And I think that's been one of my, and still is, I'm not perfect, authentic
but not perfect.
On the T, I didn't even
still available at morethandifferent.com. Been sold a lot at Hoops for Hope a few weeks ago. Big hit, but great still event. Available morethandifferent.com. I believe they're $19.99. Yeah,
plug. Anyway, that's been and still is one of my biggest points of growth, right? Is not letting that story get out of control, is staying honest. But more importantly, because I think, like we've talked about in the past, we've been at this for many years. And over that time, you're going to build and you're going to become a strong person, very well-rounded and thorough. And so you win a lot. Now, granted, are those troughs when you lose still lurking? Of course. But I would say a large majority of my days are positive wins as a whole, I would say. Granted, there's micro things that you can dial up and improve at each day. But, I think one of the most important things is kind of like a chop wood, carry water type of mentality where it's almost like becoming a bit stoic and numb to victory. You're kind of if you're telling yourself the story of, wow, like what a win, like perfect day. I just did so well that day. I almost checked everything off. Like if you let that voice become too positive and you lose that honesty, and you also get a bit grandiose with the magnitude of your wins each day, I feel like that's when the ego can start to inflate. That's when it can really enter grandiosity, when you can really lose that unity and you kind of see yourself as a separate, better, just kind of like entitled person. You know what I mean? And that's some of the pitfalls of the ego. And that's where you got to be careful with this story that you tell yourself. Like, you don't want to divide yourself with that story. You don't want to elevate yourself away from others. You know what I mean?
Yes.
It requires a humility where, you enter the battle, you come out victorious, you gain what you gain from that, whether it's knowledge of yourself, monetarily, victory-wise, but then you celebrate with the people you did it with. You help people with what you've just learned and accomplished, as a way to really just realign that story with MTD and that whole paradigm.
Yeah, life has a crazy way of always keeping you humble.
Yeah.
And
because sorry to interrupt, but that story, like I said, those troughs lurk. And so that story is going to be real fucking negative compared to, when your ego's all inflated and that is out of control when you are in one of those dips. And so you'll be humbled sooner or later.
Yeah, you will. And that's why that's why in moments where things get hard, you need to appreciate those moments. Right. Because if you're so high and low, then you you make a fool of yourself, because then
Yeah.
when things are going well, you feel like you're on top of the world, you're invincible, and then when things are going bad, you become a shell of yourself. That's why being even keel, keeping that humility is so important. And I could say the same thing. I've had moments where I struggled with that, and it was like, oh, I feel like I got life figured out. I figured it out.
Yeah.
So far from that, but I'm always becoming.
Yeah.
I'm never arriving. So even if I feel like I arrived at a small destination within the journey of my life, I know there's so much more that still awaits, and there's so many more challenges that will come, and I'm okay with that and accepting of that. And I'm far from perfect, but I can only strive to be authentic, and that is the ultimate gift and superpower. So that humility is essential. We should have an episode on that, because that's sometimes a hard thing to learn, and learn how to deal with and feel, because there is that balance of like, you need to be confident and certain in yourself, mixed with, you need to understand that there's always levels to this, and if you don't put yourself in check, life will. And
100%.
And you don't want to then shrivel up and feel like a victim when that does happen.
Right. Yeah.
That's the worst. So it's great banter, Ro.
Yeah. Chop wood, carry water, sir.
Chop wood, carry water. Be relentless, and be the voice who celebrates yourself.
Yeah.
At times, I'd say that, because it's a powerful voice, and we listen to ourselves clearly, because we can convince ourselves of the most crazy things we might be feeling. Oh my God, out of line. It's like, oh my God, this person I'm trying to talk to, she's probably thinking this.
It's funny you brought that up just before we wrap up. It's interesting, because if you see somebody you've been thinking about a lot, likely a female, we've talked about this a lot in the past, where you see them and you were nervous, all this and that, and maybe they look like they're having a bad day. Maybe you do actually talk to them and they're not doing well, and you thought they were all over you, they didn't care, they were doing so well, or whatever it is. And it's interesting how the nervousness that you felt either in the interaction or as soon as you saw them just completely flips as soon as you realize that you're doing, quote, better than them. And that voice tells you a different story.
Yeah, right.
And so I feel like a lot of people can relate, where like all of a sudden they feel like this surge, literal surge of like power, energy of like, oh, I'm doing better than her or him or whatever it is. And like, I'm so secure, like I could be doing so much worse. And that voice all of a sudden charges you up.
Right. But it shouldn't take that moment to charge you up. Right. That's the key, and that whole dynamic of being better than or whatever is all bullshit. So yeah, it's about realizing everyone is, you're for feeling these things. You're not an anomaly. Everyone has this uncertainty. Everyone gets anxious, and
literally everybody.
It has the voice in their head that tells them the worst. So, and that will continue to occur. But it's about figuring out how you can, in moments of struggle, lean on yourself a little more, because you still lean on others, but again, if you know there's something you wanted to hear from someone else and you know what it is, just tell yourself. The mind is powerful. You can convince yourself of a lot, and don't be delusional, but I'll tell you what I can convince myself of. I'm a champ. I'm a champ. I'm an 18-time champ. I'm a part of history. And I will be at the parade tomorrow. There's no uncertainty in that. I will be at the parade early and often. Duck boats, cue them.
Sir, I will not be at the parade. I'll be stacking bread.
All right, well, I'll be sending you photos or videos. You'll just be envious, because it's going to be carnage in the streets. Early and often, I'll have boots on ground in Boston, 18-time champs. And guess what? Today is the first official day of summer. If that doesn't set the tone for what this summer is about, I don't know what will.
Yeah.
Rowan?
Sir, the final thing I'll say, you said I'll be envious. Tell myself a different story. And no, I won't be.
Well played. Well played.
I'll be dialed in.
Well played. Rowan? 5 of them. That's a small milestone. That's a small victory to celebrate.
Yeah.
5 episodes of the Ace Place.
5. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening. Chop wood, carry water. Find your strategies for building that relationship in each moment with yourself. That comfort, that assurance, that confidence, that honesty. That journal's potent.
Well said, Ron.
Is that where we drop the...
I believe that's where we drop the mic. Go Celtics. Cue the damn duck boats. And have a wonderful weekend.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Peace.
Peace.
Can't forget.